Right after her baby came into the world, her husband stood in the hospital room and said no. "I won't sign anything. That child is not mine," he shouted, pointing his finger at her while his rich family watched and whispered. But then the doctor walked in with papers in his hand, and suddenly her husband's face went white like snow. Sometimes the worst hurt doesn't come from getting hit. It comes from being made to feel small while everyone watches and does nothing. And that's exactly what happened to Maya Brooks. Maya Brooks was 27 years old. She worked at a flower shop in the pretty neighborhood of Charleston, South Carolina. Maya was always the quiet type. She didn't like loud noises or big crowds, but she had a warm heart that made everyone feel safe around her. Even though she didn't have much money growing up, people loved her because she worked hard and always told the truth. She also had this funny way of whispering when she talked, like she was afraid to bother anyone. She fell in love with Marcus Stone when she was 23. He came from a family that everyone knew because they owned restaurants and big buildings all over the city. Marcus walked into her life like a sudden storm, but at first it felt like a gentle rain. He smiled big, talked smooth, and made promises that sounded like forever. But those promises slowly turned into something cold and mean, hidden behind quiet days. That city hospital, with its smell of cleaning stuff and the sound of babies crying everywhere, became the place where Maya's nightmare started. Maya had been trying to have her baby for over 9 hours, all by herself, holding the bed sheets tight, her heart breaking into pieces. Her aunt, who was very sick and could barely walk, couldn't come to help her. Her friends from the neighborhood tried, but they lived too far away and had no way to get there. And Marcus? Well, Marcus showed up only after everything was done. The hospital room was small with old walls and a bright white light that hurt your eyes when you looked up. Maya was holding her baby, her face wet from crying so much. When the door opened, Marcus walked in wearing expensive clothes, his hair perfectly neat, looking like he just came from a fancy party. Behind him was his mother, Mrs. Victoria Stone, who had a mean look in her eyes like she thought Maya was dirt. And his older brother, Caleb, who stared at Maya like she was something gross on his shoe. "You're late," Maya whispered, barely able to speak because she was so tired, holding her tiny baby close. Marcus didn't say anything back. He took one step, then another, until his eyes landed on the baby. He stopped moving. His face changed. It wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was angry and cold like ice. "What is this?" he said, not yelling, but in a voice so sharp it made the room feel frozen. Maya looked at him, confused and scared. "It's your daughter, Marcus. Our daughter." Mrs. Victoria moved closer with hard steps and stood next to her son. She looked at Marcus, then at the baby, and her lips twisted with disgust. "That is not a stone," she said coldly. Caleb laughed a short, mean laugh. "Maya, what did you do behind my brother's back?" "I didn't do anything," Maya started shaking. "The baby is yours, Marcus." But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He spun around toward the nurse who just walked in to check on Maya. "I need to talk to someone in charge right now. I refuse to sign any papers. That child will never have my last name." His words felt like knives stabbing into Maya's heart. The nurse looked uncomfortable and tried to leave the room quickly. Maya held the baby tighter, her eyes filled with tears. She wasn't crying because people were watching. She was crying because of the pain exploding inside her chest like a balloon popping. "How can you say that? She is your daughter, Marcus. Please look at me," she begged, her voice breaking into pieces. Marcus looked at her for the first time since walking in, but not like a husband looks at his wife. He looked at her like she was a stranger he didn't even know. "Do you think I'm dumb? That baby doesn't look anything like me. You really think I'm going to take care of a mistake that's not even mine? She's not a mistake. She's your daughter. Don't you raise your voice at me," he yelled, pointing his finger right at her face. "What you did is terrible. You have no idea what you just caused." Mrs. Victoria crossed her arms and walked closer to Maya with a look full of hate. "I always knew you were just a poor girl trying to get rich by having a baby. And look at you now. You don't even know who the real father is. Stop lying, Maya screamed, shaking with anger. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't you dare speak to my mother like that. Marcus slammed his hand against the wall so hard it made a bang sound. And you, Maya, what you did can never be forgiven. You messed with my family. The baby started crying loud, like she could feel all the bad energy in the room, like she knew something was very wrong. Maya rocked her gently, trying to calm her down while she was falling apart inside. The crying brought a doctor into the room. He walked in looking worried. It was Dr. Hassan, the doctor who helped deliver the baby. He was tall with gray hair on the sides of his head and tired eyes. He stopped when he saw what was happening. Is everything okay in here? No, it's not okay, Marcus snapped. This woman is trying to trap me with a baby that isn't mine. I want proof right now. I will not let anyone pin a fake child on me. The doctor looked at Maya, then at the baby. He waited a long time. He took a deep breath. Mr. Stone, I need to talk to you alone in private. I have nothing to discuss. I'm done here. That baby isn't mine. I don't care what you have to say. Please, the doctor said firmly. This is very important. You need to hear this. Marcus ignored him, crossed his arms, and turned to his mother. We're leaving. Let her figure out her own mess. Maya tried to sit up in bed, but the pain from having the baby made her fall back down. Don't leave. Please just listen to me, Marcus. Mrs. Victoria came close one last time. I hope you have a good story ready when that child asks who her daddy is. And they all left the room. Caleb looked back at Maya one last time. Not with sadness or anger, just nothing. Me. The doctor closed the door softly and walked over to Maya's bed. Maya was completely broken. The baby, still crying, held onto her mother for warmth. Maya, the doctor said quietly. You need to be very strong right now. What I'm about to tell you is going to be hard to hear. She lifted her wet face covered in tears. What is it, doctor? The doctor stopped talking for a moment. He looked at the baby, then back at her. The reason Marcus felt something was strange makes sense now. The baby has something in her body that doesn't match his, but it also doesn't match yours completely either. Maya blinked, confused. What are you saying? We need to do more tests to be sure. But Maya, the baby's father, seems to be someone very close to Marcus. Someone in his own family. Maya's eyes went wide. Her heart stopped beating for a second. No, that can't be true. I was never with anyone else. Never, ever. The doctor stood up awkwardly and walked toward the door. I'll know more when the test results come back. For now you should rest. You're going to need all your strength. He left the room. Maya was left alone in the quiet. The baby's cries got softer. The pain in her body was bad, but the pain in her soul was worse. It had no name and no way to fix it. She didn't know this was only the beginning. She couldn't imagine that the truth she was about to learn was even worse than any lie someone could tell. Maya couldn't move her body. She felt like a huge weight was pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. The quiet in the room was so heavy you could almost touch it. The doctor was gone. Marcus had left her alone. And her daughter, little Emma, was sleeping on her chest so peacefully, like she didn't know yet how mean the world could be. Hours went by slowly, like shadows creeping across the floor in the dark. Maya didn't close her eyes even once. She just stared up at the ceiling, trying to understand what had just happened. She kept telling herself over and over that it couldn't be real, that it was all just a bad dream, that the pain would go away soon. But it didn't go away. The pain stuck to her chest like a heavy rock she couldn't lift. And the worst part wasn't being embarrassed in front of everyone. It was the wondering, the doubt. The doctor's words kept playing in her head like a song she couldn't stop hearing. Something that doesn't match. How could that be? She had never, ever been with another man. Not even a look, not even a touch with anyone else. Never. And yet here was her daughter, being rejected by everyone, even by her own father. Or the man she thought was her father. When the sun started coming up, a nurse came in looking very tired. She brought a tray with breakfast and some papers to fill out. Maya, sweetie, you need to sign these papers so you can go home. Do you have someone who can pick you up? Maya shook her head side to side. No, I don't have anyone. The nurse let out a sad sigh with that quiet kindness that only people who've seen too many sad things have. You can stay a few more hours, but the hospital doesn't have enough beds. You'll need to leave when you're ready. Maya nodded her head slowly, then looked down at her daughter. I don't have anywhere to take her. 3 days later, Maya went back to the small neighborhood where she grew up. The streets were dirt, the roofs were made of thin metal, and there was a smell of wetness mixed with a smell of good food cooking that made her remember old times. The house she got from her aunt was falling apart. The windows were broken and there was no water coming from the faucets. Maya walked inside with Emma in her arms and took a deep breath. It wasn't a big fancy house, but at least nobody would judge her here. She thought about crying, but she had no more tears left inside. At the Stone family mansion, everything felt tense and uncomfortable. Marcus had called Dr. Hassan on the phone to demand answers. What do you mean it doesn't match? Explain it to me clearly right now, he said angrily, walking around his office with a glass of alcohol in his hand and fire in his eyes. The doctor on the phone stayed calm. Mr. Stone, like I explained before, we found something unusual. The baby matches with a relative of yours, but not you. We need to do a DNA test as soon as possible. Are you saying it was someone in my own family? I can't say for sure without more proof. That's why we need the test. Marcus hung up the phone without saying anything else. He looked out the big window, his face tight and angry. He started thinking about the gardener who always smiled too much at Maya, the delivery man who once asked how she was doing, even his own brother Caleb, who was only 24 and spent way too much time at the house when Marcus wasn't there. Mrs. Victoria walked into the room at that moment. She was elegant and proud, with that look on her face like she was better than everyone else. Well, I'm setting up a DNA test. I want to end this nonsense once and for all. That woman, I always knew she couldn't be trusted. You could see it in her cheap clothes and the way she talked. Women like that only want to ruin good families. Marcus made tight fists with his hands. I want everyone who works here investigated. Every single person. I will not let anyone destroy my family's name. Meanwhile, Maya was just trying to survive each day. She had no baby formula, no diapers, and her bank account was empty. Marcus had cut her off from everything, even the health insurance. She went to the little store on the corner to ask if she could pay later, but nobody would help her. Maya, I'm sorry, but you still owe me money from last month. And with all the things people are saying about you, I don't want any trouble, the store owner said, looking down at the floor. Maya left the store with her head down, feeling like her dignity was torn into pieces. But just as she turned the corner, an old woman called out to her from the doorway of a small house with rusty bars on the windows. Hey Maya, come here, child. Come inside. You and that baby look like you haven't eaten in days. It was Miss Rachel, a neighbor who had lived there forever. She was a widow and a mother of 5 grown kids who didn't live with her anymore. She welcomed Maya with a cup of hot tea, some bread, and a look of real love that Maya hadn't felt in such a long time. I don't know what you did, but whatever it is, that baby didn't do anything wrong. And you need help right now. Maya broke down crying for the first time since leaving the hospital. She cried like a little kid. She cried at the wooden table with Emma sleeping in her lap while Miss Rachel stroked her hair gently. I don't understand what's happening, she whispered through her tears. I promise I didn't do anything wrong. I was never with another man. That night when she tried to sleep, a blurry memory came to her mind. A sudden image that stabbed her like a knife. A glass of juice that tasted funny. Feeling dizzy and strange. Marcus wasn't home that night. She only remembered being in the big house alone. After that, everything was foggy like thick clouds. She tried to remember more, but it felt like trying to scream but no sound coming out. Something didn't make sense. The next day, people started talking about it on the internet and social media. Someone had posted a picture of Marcus leaving the hospital with his mother and brother. The words under the picture said, "Rich man rejects his own baby at the hospital." People had different opinions. Some people defended Marcus. Other people said he was terrible. But everyone was talking about it. The newspapers started paying attention too. A young reporter named Jessica Lee found out where Maya was staying. She knocked on Miss Rachel's door 2 days later. "Are you Maya Brooks?" Maya hesitated but then nodded yes. "I want to tell your story to the world, but only if you want me to. People deserve to know what really happened." Maya didn't answer right away. She looked down at her baby daughter. The world was mean and cruel, but maybe telling her story was the only way to protect Emma. At the Stone Mansion, Marcus got the DNA test results in the mail. He was alone in his room. He opened the envelope with shaking hands and read the paper inside. He stopped breathing. He read it again. Negative. The baby was not his child. He felt like something inside him broke into a million pieces. It wasn't sadness he felt. It was rage. Pure anger burning like fire. He called his lawyer immediately and told him to destroy all the papers they had started for the birth certificate. "That child is dead to me," he said, throwing the envelope into the fireplace and watching it burn. A few hours later, Marcus was at a fancy party in downtown Atlanta. He was laughing with a young woman with blonde hair and perfect makeup named Ashley. He was at a meeting with important business people. Nobody mentioned Maya. Nobody mentioned Emma. Just drinks, fake laughs, and people trying to fill up the empty spaces inside themselves. Meanwhile, Maya started looking for work. With Emma in her arms and a resume that everyone had heard bad rumors about, she went to offices, bakeries, and grocery stores asking for a job. Everyone said the same thing. "I'm sorry, we're not hiring right now." When night came, Maya went back to Miss Rachel's house completely exhausted. Her feet hurt and all she had was a small bag of rice that Miss Rachel had given her. When she walked inside, she found a letter that someone had slipped under the door. There was no name on it. It only said, "He wasn't the only one in that house who looked at you the wrong way." Maya felt chills run down her back. She looked at her daughter Emma, hugged her tight against her chest, then closed the door and pulled the curtains shut. There were too many dark secrets around her story, and she was only beginning to understand that behind every silence there was a horrible secret hiding. Maya hadn't slept peacefully since getting that scary letter with no name on it. The words kept repeating in her mind like a bad dream. "He wasn't the only one in that house who looked at you the wrong way." She felt real fear. Not fear of ghosts or monsters, but fear of what she remembered and what she couldn't remember. Fear of what might have happened that night when everything became blurry and confusing. The next few days were covered in silence and worry. Emma started crying more. Maya held her close and tight. Emma was only a few weeks old, but her eyes looked at Maya like she had already lived 1,000 lives and understood everything. Maya stroked her soft hair and sang quietly to her. Then she sat on the edge of the broken bed in that borrowed house. Miss Rachel's home was now her only safe place. The world had left her completely alone. But time didn't stop moving forward. And neither did hunger. That same night, Maya made a big decision in her heart. She went out with Emma wrapped in a thin blanket, walked through the neighborhood with her head up high, and went straight to a building where offices were. The place smelled like old sweat and cheap cleaning products. She asked to speak to the person in charge of cleaning. "I need a job. Anything at all. I just ask that you let me bring my baby with me." The boss looked at her like she was crazy. "This isn't a babysitting place, lady. She won't bother anyone. She'll sleep in a corner. I just need one chance. Please." The woman sighed loudly. She was tired and needed someone to work right away. "All right, fine. But if that baby cries too loud, you're gone. I don't want problems." That night, Maya mopped shiny marble floors with swollen, painful hands. Emma slept in a cardboard box with a folded sheet as her little mattress. Every time Maya finished cleaning an area, she would rush over to check that Emma was still breathing okay. Her whole body hurt everywhere, but her heart hurt even more. With every section of floor she cleaned, She felt like she was erasing a piece of who she used to be. She was no longer Mrs. Marcus Stone. She was nobody to anyone. Days went by slowly and painfully. Emma started showing strange symptoms that scared Maya. She had trouble breathing sometimes. She had a fever that wouldn't go away. And her little hands shook and trembled. Maya rushed her to a free health clinic in the neighborhood. The doctor there was young and serious looking. He examined Emma without saying much. "We need to run more tests on her. This could be something more serious than a simple cold." Maya looked at him with terror in her eyes. "More serious? What do you mean?" "It could be something with her nerves or her body's energy system. I don't want to scare you without knowing for sure, but there are warning signs we can't ignore." "And how much do those tests cost?" The doctor hesitated and looked uncomfortable. "Around $5,000. Maybe $6,000. It depends on what we find." Maya felt like all the air was sucked out of her lungs. She didn't even have $100. That night Maya didn't eat anything. She sold her only ring, the one Marcus had given her when he promised her a beautiful life together. She traded it for 2 cans of baby formula and 1 pound of rice. That was it. The next day Maya went to a legal help office. It was a small room with wet, stained walls and papers stacked everywhere. A young lawyer named Imani Carter met with her. She had dark circles under her eyes from not sleeping, but her eyes were sharp and smart. She listened to Maya's whole story without interrupting once. "I want to make my daughter's father take responsibility for her." Imani wrote notes on her paper. "Do you have the birth certificate?" Maya looked down at her feet. "He destroyed it. He said that baby didn't deserve his last name." Imani looked at her seriously. "We're going to start with a paternity lawsuit and child support. Do you have any proof you were married to him?" Maya pulled out a torn folder from her bag. Inside was a photo from her wedding day, a simple copy of the marriage license, and a couple of electric bills with both their names on them. "This will work for now, but you're going to need an official genetic test done properly." Maya swallowed hard. They already did one. It came back saying he wasn't the father. Imani raised her eyebrows in surprise. "And are you absolutely sure you weren't with any other man?" Maya lifted her hurt, tired eyes. "I don't remember everything clearly. Just one night I felt strange, like something was very wrong. But I didn't do anything on purpose. I would never." The lawyer nodded slowly. She didn't ask more questions right then. Some things hurt too much to push. "I'm going to help you, Maya. I can't promise miracles will happen, but I promise I'll fight for justice." At the Stone family mansion, the air felt thick and heavy. The newspapers were starting to put pressure on them. Some news outlets wanted to know why a baby had been publicly rejected by such a powerful and rich family. Social media was not forgiving at all. The Stone family name was starting to mean scandal and shame instead of success. Marcus, desperate to fix his reputation and image, ordered a plan to control what the media said. He paid newspapers not to write bad stories, silenced local TV news, and hired people who specialized in making his online reputation look good. But inside the big house, the tension and stress couldn't be hidden anymore. Mr. Leonard Stone, Marcus's father, had just come back from a long business trip. He was always elegant and always had a careful smile on his face. He was one of those men who didn't yell or scream, but when he looked at you, his single glance could make an entire room go silent with fear. Marcus met him in the private study room. "Father, I need to know if anyone in our family did something terrible with Maya." Mr. Stone stared at him without blinking. "What exactly are you referring to, son?" "You know what I mean. She says she wasn't with anyone else. The DNA doesn't match me, but the doctor says it matches someone close to me. Did you see anything happen? Was Caleb here when I wasn't?" Mr. Stone kept his face completely calm. "Your weakness is making you say foolish things. Stop making excuses for your failed marriage. That woman doesn't deserve another second of our time or attention." Marcus swallowed hard. "You can't just ignore this. Something doesn't add up right. Caleb was here a lot when I was gone. So was the driver and the cook. Mr. Stone interrupted him in a strong, firm voice. Don't you dare bring your brother into this mess. He's just a young man. If you were stupid enough to let an outsider into this family, then accept the consequences of your choices. From the doorway, Caleb was standing there listening quietly. He then walked downstairs and found his mother, Mrs. Victoria, sitting in the parlor. He said in a quiet voice, "Mom, do you remember a woman named Diana?" Mrs. Victoria immediately became tense and stiff. "Why are you bringing up that woman's name?" "Because Dad has worse secrets than what happened with Maya. You know it's true. What he did to Diana was even more terrible. But everyone just stayed quiet about it." Mrs. Victoria turned pale white. "Be quiet right now. Don't you dare talk about that ever. That story died years ago and stayed buried." Caleb shook his head slowly. "No, Mom, it didn't die. It was just buried deep like everything else in this house. But buried things don't disappear. They rot." That night, Maya took Emma to a different clinic that sometimes helped people for free. The same doctor who had seen her at the public hospital, Dr. Hassan, was working there. He was surprised to see her walk in, but he didn't say anything. After looking at Emma very carefully for a long time, he sat down across from Maya with a very serious look on his face. "Your daughter has a mitochondrial disorder. It's a very rare condition that gets passed down in families. It affects how her cells make energy and how her brain develops. It gets worse over time." Maya felt like she was going to faint and fall over. She could die. Not if we act fast and treat it properly. But the treatment costs a lot of money and takes a very long time. "How much money?" The doctor waited before answering. "More than $15,000 just to start the first treatments." Maya didn't say anything back. She just hugged her daughter Emma close to her chest. "I don't have that kind of money. I barely have anything. There's another option we could try. If we can find a relative whose DNA is compatible, we could start a different kind of therapy that might work." Maya looked up at him. "A compatible relative? What does that mean?" "We need to test the DNA of the possible fathers. If we find someone with a specific genetic match to Emma, we could use that to help treat her condition." Maya closed her eyes tight. She felt the whole room spinning around her. She remembered everything that had happened. The rejection, the abandonment, the hateful words. What if the only person who matches is in a family that hates me and wants nothing to do with us? The doctor looked at her with real compassion in his eyes. "Then you'll have to decide if you're willing to face that hatred, or let the silence kill your daughter slowly." That night in her tiny room, Maya watched Emma while she slept peacefully. Next to her was an envelope with new genetic test results that she had requested with Imani's help. She opened it with trembling, shaking hands and read it word by word, line by line. The result was different from the first hospital test. This new report said something more specific and terrifying. There was a match, yes, but not with Marcus. With another member of the Stone family. Closer, older member. Maya let the paper slip from her fingers and fall to the floor. The world went completely dark around her. And for the first time, she understood that her story was only the surface. There was a much deeper, darker hole underneath everything. Because if what that paper said was actually true, then the real father of her daughter wasn't just someone close to Marcus. He was someone who had destroyed many, many lives before hers. And he was still walking around free. Maya let the envelope fall to the floor without making a sound. But the impact felt as real as if her whole world had exploded right inside that tiny room. The air became so thick she could barely breathe. The image of Mr. Leonard Stone appeared in her mind like an old, dark shadow. He was always so elegant and refined with that perfect smile that hid something evil underneath. Something she hadn't wanted to see or believe before. The genetic match was clear and left no doubt. It wasn't just a guess or a maybe. It was facts written on paper. Emma's real, true father lived behind the big glass windows of a mansion that Maya had once called home. And he carried the same last name that had rejected her. Maya pressed Emma against her chest as if the warmth of her body could protect her from what was coming next. She didn't cry. She didn't scream out loud. She just sat there completely still, feeling an emptiness inside her that she didn't know how to fill up. For the first time, she wasn't just a victim of abandonment. She was a victim of the silent agreement of an entire family who knew but said nothing. And that silence, she understood now, was the cruelest enemy of all. That very same night, she asked for a meeting with Imani, the lawyer helping her. "I didn't want to believe it could be true, but I can't stay quiet anymore," Maya said, putting the envelope with the test results on the small office table. Imani read it silently without blinking. She didn't say anything for many long seconds. "Leonard Stone," she whispered finally. Maya nodded her head slowly, her eyes looking empty and far away. "What are you going to do now?" Imani asked her. Maya didn't answer right away. Then she lifted her head up. "I'm going to see Mrs. Victoria. She knows the truth." She always knew. The next day, Maya showed up at the mansion without telling anyone she was coming. The security guard at the gate wasn't sure what to do, but when he saw her determined face and saw she was carrying her baby, he let her walk through. She walked across the perfect green lawn, through the fancy hallways she used to walk through when she had dreams and hope, until she reached the main living room. Mrs. Victoria was sitting there having tea with her cousin. When she saw Maya walk in, her lips twisted with disgust. "You have some nerve showing your face here after all the damage and embarrassment you caused this family." Maya didn't move or flinch. "I need to speak with you alone. Right now." Mrs. Victoria's cousin stood up without saying a single word. The tension filled every corner of the room. The older woman slowly set her teacup down on the fancy saucer. "You have 5 minutes. Make it quick. I'm not here to talk about your son Marcus. I'm here to talk about your husband, the other one in this family." Mrs. Victoria blinked rapidly. The silence became icy cold. "I know that the true father of my daughter is Leonard. I have proof, and you knew about it the whole time." "What are you implying?" she tried to say, but Maya interrupted her firmly. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. And you are going to help me now because this isn't just about me anymore. This is about every woman he's hurt." Mrs. Victoria stood up from her chair. Her hand shook just a tiny bit. "You don't know what you're saying. You have absolutely no idea what it means to accuse a man like my husband of something like this." Maya didn't back down or move. "And a woman named Diana didn't know what she was doing when she screamed for help either, did she? Or was she also silenced with money and threats?" Mrs. Victoria's eyes flew wide open in shock. That name. That memory that had been locked away like a dead body buried deep in her mind. "How do you know that name? Who told you?" "Caleb mentioned it to me. And there's a pattern here, Mrs. Stone. Your husband has done this before. Many times. And your silence makes you just as guilty as him." Mrs. Victoria took a shaky step backward, stumbling a little. Then she sank down into the armchair as if the weight of years and years of keeping secrets had finally crushed her completely. "Diana was a young woman who worked here in this house as a maid. One day she just disappeared without a trace. They said she left without warning anybody. But I knew that wasn't true. I saw her crying. I saw bruises on her arms. I saw how she avoided being near Leonard. I knew something terrible happened, but I was too afraid to say anything. Leonard warned me that if I ever spoke about it, he would destroy everything. My children, my life, me. And I believed him because he always follows through on his threats. He never makes empty promises. And that's why you let him do the same horrible thing to me. You let him repeat it." Mrs. Victoria bowed her head down low. Her silence was her only answer. That night, Maya and Imani started investigating who Diana really was and what happened to her. There were no recent records anywhere. Only an old police report for a voluntary disappearance that was closed months later because there wasn't enough evidence to keep looking. Imani connected to a medical database online. It took many hours of searching until they finally found something. Patient named Diana Ruiz. Diagnosis: severe unspecified psychosis. She was hospitalized in a private psychiatric clinic outside the city limits. A psychiatric hospital, Maya said, not believing what she was reading. Forced confinement. If she's been locked up there ever since it happened, that means she's been there for more than 5 years. This is not an accident. This was planned. They decided to go visit the very next day. Imani made all the arrangements and phone calls. She used her lawyer title to get permission to visit, though they could only do a short, supervised visit. They couldn't tell the real reasons why they wanted to see Diana yet. Maya waited in the car in the parking lot. From the window, she watched nurses in white uniforms, doctors with clipboards, and patients walking in slow circles around the courtyard. The place had tall fences with barbed wire on top and security cameras on every single corner. It wasn't a hospital for helping people get better. It was a white prison. Imani came back after about an hour. Her eyes looked cloudy and sad. She doesn't talk to anyone. She barely moves at all. They keep her heavily sedated all the time with strong medications. She has marks on her wrists like she tried to. She couldn't finish saying the words out loud. Maya looked down at her lap. The air felt so heavy it was hard to breathe. She's alive, but she's not free anymore. Just like what almost happened to me. That same week, a newspaper journalist who had been quietly following Maya's case for some time published something shocking. It was a leaked audio recording. The recording was old and had no date on it and no context to explain it. But you could hear a scared woman's voice screaming desperately. "He put something in my drink. I didn't want this. I couldn't move my body. Please somebody help me. Please." The internet and social media completely exploded with reactions. Some people said the audio was fake and made up. Other people swore they recognized the voice from somewhere. Imani worked hard and managed to trace where the recording came from originally. It was part of a series of old medical files from the exact same psychiatric clinic where Diana was being kept. Someone who used to work there but didn't anymore had sold the audio file to a reporter for money. Maya listened to that audio 3 times in a row. The third time she played it, her blood went ice cold in her veins. She realized something terrifying. It was her own voice on that recording. Imani understood it at the exact same moment. She didn't say anything out loud. She just looked at Maya with wide, knowing eyes. Marcus, sitting alone in his office at work, heard the audio for the first time on his phone. Someone had sent him an anonymous link. He put it on speaker and listened carefully. When he heard that scream, that broken, desperate tone, that begging for help, he felt something deep inside him snap and break. He closed his eyes tight, trying to remember and visualize that night. The night he left for his business trip overseas. Before leaving, he had told his father that Maya would be alone in the house for 3 days. His father had insisted everything would be fine and that he would check on her. Dad was alone with her that night, Marcus whispered to himself. The glass he was holding slipped from his hand and crashed to the floor, shattering into 100 pieces. The sound of breaking glass echoed the same way his heart was breaking inside his chest. And then, like lightning hitting him, he understood everything that had really happened. The convenient business trip. The night Maya stayed alone at the big house. His father's pushy insistence that everything would be perfectly fine. Maya's strange expression weeks later when something inside her had changed completely. The silent pain. The distance between them. The constant, unexplainable sadness in her eyes. Marcus was breathing so hard it felt like the air itself was choking him. He walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on his face, and looked in the mirror. He didn't recognize the person staring back at him. In his reflection wasn't the confident, elegant man who used to control everything with just a smile. There was a betrayed son. A blind, stupid husband. Completely defeated human being. He grabbed his car keys, went downstairs, and walked through the marble hallways without greeting anyone or looking at them. His mother called out to him from the sitting room, but he completely ignored her. He walked straight to the door of Leonard Stone's private study without even knocking first. His father was standing by the window, pouring himself expensive whiskey into a crystal glass, acting like the whole world owed him respect and worship. He looked up slowly and calmly. "You have no manners, son. You should knock before entering." Marcus closed the door hard behind him. The tension in the room felt so thick you could almost touch it with your hands. "What did you do to her?" Marcus asked in a shaking voice. Leonard didn't answer. He just took a slow sip from his glass. "I'm going to ask you one more time, and you better answer me. What did you do to Maya?" The silence stretched out long and arrogant. Then Leonard took another sip and spoke with terrifying, chilling calmness. "Everything I've done in this family, I did to make you stronger. You were always weak, Marcus. You weren't born with what it takes to lead this family. You had no backbone. You cared too much about feelings and emotions." Marcus took a shaky step toward him. His fists clenched tight. "You drugged her. You violated her when she couldn't defend herself. Is that what you did to my wife?" "Don't raise your voice at me in my own house," Leonard said coldly. "Answer me right now," Marcus shouted. Leonard looked at him without any emotion at all. "She was just another chess piece in the game. I wanted to teach you a lesson that you can't trust anyone in this world. Not women, not your own weak judgment. And I succeeded perfectly because you failed, just like you always do." Marcus stumbled backward like someone had punched him hard in the chest. He felt sick to his stomach, disgusted and horrified. His own father had destroyed the woman he loved just to humiliate him and prove some twisted point. "You're sick. You're evil. I'm in control. What's the difference between the two?" Leonard said with a slight smile. "You're not in control of anything anymore because I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to expose you and everything you represent to the whole world." Leonard let out a short, dry laugh. "And you actually think people are going to believe you? A spoiled, emotional boy over me. Do you have any idea how many judges owe me favors? How many newspapers and TV stations depend on my money to survive?" Marcus made tight fists with both hands until his knuckles turned white. "They're going to find out everything because I'm going to tell them myself. Every single detail." He turned around and left the room. He didn't look back. He didn't listen to the threats his father was yelling behind him. He slammed the heavy door and rushed out of that mansion like it had turned into a burning cage of hell. When he arrived at the poor neighborhood where Maya was living now, he didn't know if he should knock on the door or just fall to his knees and beg. Miss Rachel opened the door with suspicion and distrust in her eyes. "What are you doing here? You're not welcome. I need to talk to Maya. Please. She doesn't want to see you or hear anything you have to say. And she's absolutely right about that." Kofi swallowed the lump in his throat. His voice cracked and broke. "Please. I'm begging you." Miss Rachel hesitated for a long moment, then slowly stepped aside to let him in. Maya was in the back room feeding Emma with a bottle. When she saw Marcus walk in, she stood up quickly with her baby held protectively in her arms. Her eyes filled with barely contained fury and pain. "What are you doing here, Marcus?" Marcus took one small step forward then stopped. He looked completely different now. Defeated. Broken. "I came to ask for your forgiveness, Maya." "Your forgiveness means nothing to me," Maya said firmly. "I know everything now. I heard the audio recording. I went to see him face to face. He confessed everything to me. What he did to you. What he did to me." His voice completely broke apart and he couldn't continue speaking. Maya knew without him needing to say anything more. But she couldn't let herself feel sorry for him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "And now you come here trying to redeem yourself and feel better. After you left me completely alone in that delivery room. After you screamed at me in front of your entire family. After you let your mother call me terrible names. Now you suddenly feel pain and want to apologize. There's no excuse for any of what I did. I know that. But I'm here now because I want to help you and Emma. I want to make things right somehow. Maya trembled all over. She is not your daughter, Marcus. She is my daughter. Even though she doesn't have your blood, what was done to create her is completely unforgivable. And I won't stay silent about it ever again. Maya collapsed onto the bed with Emma cradled safely in her arms. Tears poured out of her like a dam breaking. Deep, exhausted, almost hopeless cries. Marcus tried to step closer to comfort her, but she raised her hand firmly to stop him. Don't come near me. I need time to process all of this. Marcus nodded slowly and sadly. He turned and left without saying anything more. Imani, Maya's lawyer, was busy preparing the official legal complaint. She knew she was about to challenge someone extremely powerful and dangerous, but she didn't care at all. The legal file was very thick with evidence. It included detailed medical exams, genetic test results, the audio recordings, Diana's entire history, and indirect testimonies from others. This case is going to explode everywhere, but you absolutely cannot back down now, Imani told Maya seriously as they reviewed all the documents together at the small table. I won't back down. Not ever, Maya said with determination. They're going to attack you from every direction. They'll say you're doing this for money, for revenge, for attention and fame. Maya looked straight into Imani's eyes without fear. I don't care what anyone says about me. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for all the women who couldn't speak up before. For Diana. For everyone he hurt. The news media found out about the case. Some reporters and outlets supported the complaint and praised Maya's courage. Others made fun of it and ridiculed her. But slowly, the story began gaining serious traction and attention. Several women started writing to Imani anonymously through email and secret messages. They had worked in the homes of powerful, wealthy families. Some told stories of how Leonard Stone had also harassed them, touched them inappropriately or worse. But they had all been too terrified to speak before. The legal team officially filed the formal complaint at the courthouse. The press and photographers surrounded the building from every angle. A photograph of Maya leaving the courthouse with baby Emma held safely in her arms went viral immediately. It circulated on social media, in newspapers, and on every television news channel. Days later, Leonard Stone sent a private message through his lawyer. He wanted to speak with Maya privately, just the two of them. Imani absolutely forbade it and said it was too dangerous. But Maya made her own decision. She was going to face him. They met at a very private, expensive restaurant where no regular people could afford to eat. Leonard arrived with his usual perfect elegance and confidence. Maya arrived with a calm but completely firm expression on her face. You have courage, I'll give you that, Leonard said, stirring his drink. I have memory. And I have a daughter who deserves justice for what you did. That child is not your weapon or your shield to hide behind. No, she's not a weapon. She is my reason. She is my engine, my purpose. And she's the living proof and reflection of what you did. Like it or not, she is in your life forever now, and everyone will know the truth. Leonard stared at her for a very long time without blinking. Then he smiled that cold, calculated smile. I can take that child away from you permanently. I have the money, the resources, the contacts, the best lawyers in the country. With just a couple of signatures and phone calls, I can get full custody. I can argue in court that you have no financial means to care for her, that you're emotionally unstable. Do you really want to play this dangerous game with me? Maya didn't flinch or show any fear. She looked right into his eyes. Go ahead and try it. But I swear to you, if you do, I will make public every single detail, every victim, every audio recording. You won't be able to walk down any street without people looking at you and knowing exactly what you are. A monster. Leonard picked up his glass slowly, drank the rest of his whiskey, then stood up and walked out without saying another word. A few days later, Marcus did something nobody expected. He called a public press conference. Imani, Maya, and dozens of media outlets and reporters were present. Microphones everywhere. Cameras flashing. The whole world was watching and waiting. Marcus stepped up to the podium, took a very deep breath, and spoke clearly into the microphones. "I come here today to speak as a son, as a husband, and as a victim of silence. The biological father of my wife's daughter is my own father, Leonard Stone. And this is not the first time he has done something like this to an innocent woman." There was a loud collective gasp and murmur from everyone in the room. Reporters started shouting questions. Camera flashes went off like fireworks. What happened to Maya was an act of violence, an abuse of power and pure evil. And I, as part of that family, can no longer stay silent and be complicit. I refuse to protect him anymore. The media coverage exploded everywhere. Social media websites crashed from too much traffic. Leonard Stone's untouchable perfect image was shattered completely in one moment. And just like that, after so many years, the silence was finally broken into a million pieces. Marcus's powerful words still echoed and bounced around in courthouse hallways, in busy newsrooms, and on internet forums like a bomb that nobody saw coming. The image of the heir to one of the most powerful families in the entire country confessing that his own father had committed an unspeakable crime, and that the innocent child he had cruelly rejected was the result of that terrible act, spread across the world like wildfire. It became international news. Front-page headlines everywhere. Reactions were completely divided. Some people applauded Marcus for his bravery and courage. Other people called him a coward for staying silent for so long and only speaking up now. But Maya didn't have any time to pay attention to debates about media impact and public opinion. She was focused on only one single thing: getting justice. Together with Imani, her dedicated lawyer, Maya presented herself at the district attorney's office. She was accompanied by cameras, journalists, and several other brave women who had also suffered similar abuse but hadn't dared to speak until this moment. Maya carried Emma in her arms like always. She was much thinner now. Her face was marked by exhaustion and sleepless nights, but her eyes shined with a bright light. She was no longer afraid of anyone or anything. She no longer hid in the shadows. Imani filed the official, formal criminal complaint against Leonard Stone with every piece of legal backing and evidence possible. The file included detailed testimonies from multiple victims, official documents, the genetic test results, the leaked audio recordings, and even a secretly recorded confession that Marcus had obtained days earlier while confronting his father in his study. The evidence was crystal clear and overwhelming. Although the law sometimes bent and twisted to protect powerful, wealthy people, this time they were going to force it to look the truth directly in the face without looking away. A press conference was called right at the courthouse entrance steps. Imani took the microphone first while Maya stood beside her holding Emma close. "Today we are not only reporting a single crime. We are exposing an entire structure of impunity that has protected one evil man for decades. A man who is capable of destroying entire lives with a charming smile on his face. We will not be silenced. We will not retreat or back down." When Maya took the microphone to speak, the silence from the crowd was absolutely complete. You could hear a pin drop. For years and years, I believed I had done something wrong. That I deserved the rejection, the hateful stares, the closed doors in my face. But it was never my fault. And today, I want every other woman out there to hear this message. It was not your fault either. Leonard Stone didn't just steal my life from me. He stole my chance to be a mother with dignity and joy. But he will never take away my strength or my voice. That exact same day, Imani presented an official list of women who were willing to testify in court against Leonard. Some were still terrified and afraid. Others didn't want to show their faces publicly. But all of their stories matched perfectly. The same repeated patterns over and over. Strange invitations to private places. Sudden dizziness. Memory blanks and confusion. Waking up disoriented and hurt. Months of forced silence afterward. Everything connected directly to Leonard Stone. Everything made invisible by his money and power. And then something unexpected happened that changed everything. Diana appeared. Not as the cheerful, happy young woman who had once worked at the Stone mansion, but as a fragile, broken figure with a pale face, short choppy hair, and hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She had escaped from the psychiatric hospital with the help of a kind nurse who decided she couldn't stay silent and complicit anymore. Imani received Diana at her own home, gave her clean clothes, a warm meal, and protected her like she was her own sister. Maya hugged Diana tightly with tears streaming down both their faces. Diana didn't speak for a very long time. But when she finally did find her voice, it was broken but incredibly firm. It made everything in the room tremble. He locked me up in that place so nobody would ever know the truth. He told me that nobody would believe a word I said, that I was just crazy. And I started to believe him after a while. Until I saw Maya on the news and understood that he was still destroying lives. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. With Diana as a key witness, the prosecutor's office immediately ordered Leonard Stone's arrest. The police arrived at his luxurious mansion with news cameras recording everything live. They brought him out in handcuffs, wearing dark sunglasses and showing absolutely no emotion on his face. He didn't resist arrest. He looked at all the journalists and cameras like they were tiny insects beneath him. Still, the moment was completely historic. A member of the Stone family being publicly arrested on live television. But the victory didn't last long. Exactly 72 hours later, Leonard was released from jail because of a legal technicality. The claim was insufficient direct evidence. The judge who made that decision was a very old friend of Leonard Stone. Social media and the internet absolutely exploded with outrage. Public opinion was divided between fury and complete disbelief that he walked free. Marcus shouted to every camera he could find that the entire system was corrupt and broken, that if his father walked free after what he did, then nobody in this country would ever be safe. Maya felt like the whole world was laughing directly in her face again. But this time something was different. She didn't break down or give up. She stood strong. She organized a public march and protest with Imani and all the other brave victims. They didn't want only judicial justice in a courtroom anymore. They wanted social justice. They wanted the entire country to look at Leonard Stone with his face completely uncovered and see him for the monster he truly was. The march was scheduled for the following Sunday. Women, mothers, daughters, activists, journalists, artists, and thousands of regular people joined together. They carried banners with powerful, sharp phrases, photos of victims, names of women who had been hidden in the shadows for too many years. Maya marched at the very front of the crowd with Emma held safely in her arms. She walked with tears flowing down her cheeks, but she never once lowered her head. She walked proud. The impact was immediate and enormous. Every single television network broadcasted the march live. Many public figures and celebrities spoke out in support. Local governments released statements showing their support. For the first time in his entire life, Leonard Stone couldn't manipulate or control the narrative anymore. Regular people didn't believe his lies. Social media refused to be quiet. The entire country was finally awake and paying attention. But while the whole world was watching, Emma's health suddenly got much worse. Her fever wouldn't go down no matter what Maya tried. Her tiny body was getting weaker every single day. She wouldn't eat anything. Maya rushed her to the nearest hospital in a panic. Dr. Hassan received them immediately in the emergency room. "We need to operate on her immediately. This cannot wait any longer." "How urgent is it?" Maya asked, her voice shaking. "Hours. If we don't do the surgery and intervene right now, there could be permanent, irreversible damage to her brain and organs. I don't have the money for surgery. I only have about $200 left to my name. That's all I have." The doctor looked at her with deep compassion in his tired eyes. "Then you need to get the money somehow. Any way you possibly can." Maya ran out of that hospital like her life depended on it. She immediately looked for Imani. Together they searched desperately for charity foundations and organizations. None of them could respond quickly enough. The hospital required a minimum deposit of $12,000 before they would even schedule the surgery. Completely desperate and out of options, Maya recorded a video on her phone. She didn't directly ask for money. She just told Emma's story honestly. She showed her sick daughter to the camera, explained the urgent medical situation, and published it on social media. Within just a few hours, people started reacting and responding. Anonymous strangers, celebrities, artists, mothers from everywhere, students. A massive wave of human solidarity activated. Maya's story was already too well known across the country. People couldn't allow an innocent baby to pay with her life for what an evil man had done. The fundraising campaign went completely viral. In less than 24 hours, the online account raised more than $70,000. Marcus, when he heard the news about Emma, immediately sold his ownership stake in a successful tech company he had founded years ago. He handed over all the money directly without making any announcements, without cameras, without seeking any attention or credit. "Just do whatever you have to do," he told Imani quietly. "I only want that little girl to be okay and healthy." Maya, when she found out what Marcus had done, didn't say anything out loud. She remained silent. But there was something new growing in her eyes. Not trust yet, not love, but real genuine gratitude. The surgery was performed and it was a complete success. Emma responded incredibly well to the treatment. The doctors reported that with continuous medical treatment and monitoring, she could live a stable, relatively normal life. It wouldn't be easy, but there was real hope for her future. That night, Maya fell asleep in the uncomfortable hospital chair with Emma's tiny hand wrapped around her finger. She dreamed of a quiet, peaceful house, of laughter and joy, of a simple, happy life. For the first time in months and months, she dreamed without fear gripping her heart. But the monster hadn't disappeared or gone away. Leonard Stone, ever since his release from jail, had been quietly pulling strings behind the scenes. He knew his time was running out. He knew the pressure was increasing from every direction. He knew the legal system no longer had his back like it used to. So he organized his escape plan with precise detail. He obtained fake identity documents and a fake passport. He arranged secret transport to another country far away. He hired private bodyguards. He planned absolutely everything with surgical precision and cold calculation. That was his style. Always in silence. Never making noise. Never leaving traces behind. But what Leonard didn't know was that his own son Marcus had hired a private investigator to follow him. They were tracking his every single movement, waiting patiently for the exact right moment to intervene and stop him. The alert reached Imani first. Imani immediately called Maya. Maya called the police. The plan was simple but had to be executed perfectly. Leonard was planning to leave the country that same night. He would fly to another continent using his false identity. The international airport was the key interception point. They had to act there exactly 1 hour before his flight boarded. Maya didn't hesitate for even 1 second. She grabbed her bag, took a cab, and went straight to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. She didn't notify the press or media. She didn't want a big spectacle. She only wanted justice. She found Leonard standing in the priority VIP check-in line. He had a fake passport in his hand and 2 large bodyguards standing on either side of him. Maya walked right up to him and looked directly into his eyes. He looked back at her with recognition. "You," he said with arrogance and a slight sneer. Maya didn't respond with words. She simply turned around. And then 2 uniformed police officers, a judge, and a prosecutor appeared from different directions and surrounded him completely. Leonard Stone was formally detained and arrested for attempted flight from justice, document fraud and forgery, and violation of his conditional release terms. "You won't get out so easily this time, Mr. Stone." "Not again," the lead officer said firmly. Leonard smiled one final time, that cold smile. "The world is full of traitors and backstabbers." Maya stared at him without any fear. "No, Mr. Stone. The world is full of women who finally stopped being afraid of men like you." And just like that, the monster fell. Leonard Stone was handcuffed right there in front of dozens of cameras and cell phones recording everything. He was surrounded by security agents and witnesses to his complete downfall. His gaze, for the very first time in his entire life, was no longer arrogant or confident. It was empty, hollow. No amount of power or money could protect him anymore. His world, carefully built on fear, manipulation, threats, and enforced silence, collapsed with the overwhelming force of a truth he could never crush or hide. The entire country watched it happen live. Some people watched with disbelief. Others with relief. Many with righteous fury. It was the end of an era where powerful people could trample on others without ever facing consequences. Justice was finally walking forward without being bought or sold. The trial was long, public, and fully televised. Dozens and dozens of witnesses came forward. Medical experts, psychologists, journalists, and most importantly, women. Voices that had been buried for years came to light with the trembling of those who don't know if they'll be believed, but with the incredible courage of those who can no longer stay silent. Among them was Diana. Her testimony completely paralyzed the courtroom. She spoke with a voice that shook but remained clear and strong. She described the hell she lived through with details that nobody in that room could ignore or deny. Every single word was a slap to the corrupt system. Maya also testified at the trial. She held Emma protectively in her arms as she spoke to the court. She didn't dramatize anything. She didn't cry. She spoke simply as a mother who was no longer afraid of anything. She told everything, from the day she woke up confused and hurt, to the moment she heard the audio recording where her own voice was begging desperately for help. She recounted in detail how the Stone family accused her of terrible things, abandoned her when she needed them most, and humiliated her in the worst ways possible. She looked directly at every judge, every lawyer, every person in that courtroom. She didn't ask for their compassion or pity. She demanded justice. The verdict finally came after long weeks of careful deliberation. Leonard Stone was declared guilty of multiple serious felonies. The charges included aggravated sexual assault, coercion and manipulation, tampering with evidence, fraud, and attempted flight from justice. The sentence was absolutely clear. Life imprisonment without any possibility of parole. Ever. The country celebrated. Some voices still doubted, influenced by decades of Leonard's media power and manipulation. But the vast majority understood that something fundamental had changed forever. It was no longer possible to stay silent when a single victim decided to speak truth to power. Candles were lit in public squares across the nation. Colored ribbons were hung on balconies. Zola wasn't the only person who won that day. Everyone won. Emma, meanwhile, was recovering well. The surgery had been successful. Her small body responded wonderfully to the treatment. The doctors were very optimistic about her future. Marcus visited her in the hospital every single day. He didn't talk very much. Sometimes he would just sit quietly beside her hospital bed, take her tiny hand gently, and watch her sleep peacefully. It was his way of asking for forgiveness. Not with big words but with quiet, consistent presence. Maya noticed it. She also noticed that Marcus was no longer the same person. The arrogant, distant, controlling Marcus from the mansion had completely disappeared. What remained was a man who was broken and shattered, but willing to rebuild himself slowly from the ruins. Years passed by. Emma grew up surrounded by real love. She was a curious, intelligent, happy child with a contagious laugh. She knew her story was special, that her mother was incredibly strong, and that somehow, her very existence had changed the lives of thousands of people. This is the end of today's story. Thank you so much for listening to Auntie's stories. Which part touched your heart the most? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more true life stories. See you in the next one.